everyone, and welcome to part 2 for Introduction to CAD and SolidWorks. Part 1, we went briefly over on how the CAD software works and how we want to approach CADing this part. And now part 2, we're going to jump into SolidWorks. Let's go.
Alright, so I have the SolidWorks 2020 educational license here. When you open up, you'll get a blank screen like this. And let's start off by creating a new file. Go up to File, and we'll go to New. And today you'll see that there are 3 templates here, and we'll be creating a part file today. An assembly file is a collection of multiple parts that assemble together to make a system. And a drawing is a engineering 2D drawing, basically what you see like blueprints that show the dimensions of different parts and how parts fit in together. Let's go to Part and OK. And this opens up our new part here. So right away I am just going to save this. And I'll be saving this into this folder here, and we'll call this phone folder example. Great. So we have a bunch of different things here. Up here you'll notice there are a bunch of buttons, which are going to be a lot of the main things we use here. And so we have the Features tab, and you can remember from the previous drawings before, we have that Extruded, and we have that Revolve boss/base button. And a bunch of grayed out features here because we haven't gotten started yet with a solid part. The next tab over, which is the other big one you're going to be using, is the Sketch tab. And this is where you will create that 2D sketch or that 2D drawing, and then where we will apply features to turn this 2D drawing into a 3D drawing. Alright, let's get into it. So to make our phone holder part here, we first want to draw this baseline sketch. And to draw the sketch, we'll go to the Sketch tab, and we will click on the Sketch button to create a new sketch. What pops up is, what face do we want to draw the sketch on? And so some other things that I haven't pointed out yet is how do you move and navigate around SolidWorks. If you click the center mouse scroll wheel, that is how you can move around and rotate the 3D space, and you can use the scroll wheel in and out to zoom in and outwards. So for this, I want this to be on the right plane because we're looking at the right of the part. So that makes the most sense to me. So you can see I'm highlighting different planes here, and I am going to click on right plane. And now we have the start of the sketch, and you can see it says up here sketch 1 of the part, and you notice that this button now turns into exit sketch. We also have an exit sketch button over here, and we start off over here. Another thing to note is that we have something called the feature tree, or basically the list of steps that you did that made this part. So this is almost like history and how you can go and backtrack. So you can see in the feature tree here that we have now created a sketch. So let's go in and start drawing this shape and how we're going to do it, which is pretty cool. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to draw some lines here, and you can click here, line, and start drawing lines. You can see that there is a kind of origin, an XY coordinate system here, and that's a great place to start. And so we're going to first start by clicking on here, and let's draw the shape out and follow these lines, and we'll rough it out and get that started. So I'm going to draw this first flat here, and then to end the sketch line early, you can double click on your mouse to end that sketch line. And let's draw the other one. I'll draw this line, click, and then You can leave the lines connected and not double tap them. So another thing to note is that these certain green boxes or relationships pop up. And right here you can see that I have a relationship here. It looks like a little horizontal line, and that's exactly what it is. This says this line is horizontal and this line is horizontal, and these relationships basically define your sketch lines, so they are constrained and don't move around. So we are like halfway there with our phone holder design. So how do we know this is actually the right size or like the right angles and all of that? Those are things that we need to define. In SolidWorks, when a line is black, that means it's defined, and when a line is blue, that means it's undefined. When a line is blue and is undefined, that means you can move it around. We don't want to be able to move our sketch around like that. So let's start defining our sketch here. So the first thing I want to do is I actually want this to be parallel to this line, and that's actually one of those relationships I was talking about. So if we go up here and we go to add relation, we can select the two things that we want to be related, and I wanted those two lines to be parallel, and I'll do that there. Cool. Alright, and then the next thing I wanted to do, and we're gonna start getting a little bit more advanced, is that I want this line to be at the same angle as this line right here. And so what I will do is start drawing in what's called construction geometry, and these are dashed lines that you use to help build out your drawing, but won't be actually part of the feature. So these are just ways to help control some things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click the line tool, and I'm going to turn that into a construction line. So over here in options, you can click for construction, and what we're going to do is draw a line of symmetry between the two legs and then make those two angle things symmetric around that construction line. Hold on, let me show you. It's going to make a lot more sense once I get this drawn out. So I'm clicking here. Notice this yellow box here, that is a midpoint constraint. There's little snap points that SolidWorks figures out what you're trying to do. So here you can see, oh, SolidWorks wants this line to be vertical and automatically adds that. And that's true, I do want it vertical. So I'm gonna line it up here and here so you can see it is vertical and horizontal to that point. And we have our construction line here. Cool. And now let's make this symmetric. So we'll go to add relation. So we're gonna click this line, and I click this line. And then now we're gonna click the symmetry line. You want it symmetric about this line. And notice that this now symmetric button up here. So we will click that, and you can see these relations just popped up, and now they are symmetric. So we have a bunch of relationships now, and you can see when I change that angle here, see how these two are symmetric, and then how this parallel line is following that line. Super cool stuff. Alright, we have our general shape and our general relationships down. Now we want to add dimensions and real life dimensions to be able to use this part and make this part in real life. So to dimension, we go up here to this, and this is the smart dimensioning tool. You can see the little tool tip here, what it's doing. Basically, you click on a line and a dimension appears. You click on it again, and then you can manually type in your dimension. So clicking smart dimension, I'm going to go here and start clicking on the lines. So this is the part here that is going to hold your phone. And you might be also looking at this sketch and like, oh, you just drew a bunch of lines. How are you gonna extrude this into a piece with some thickness? We're gonna actually add the thickness after this. So I'm actually drawing, if I can point out here, I am drawing this inside line here, kind of running across the top here. and I will be thickening it and then extruding it to create this part. Follow along, will make a little bit more sense. But anyway, what this part is here is this is the part that needs to fit my cell phone in. So we want to make this actually a real dimension. So if you have a pair of calipers or a ruler around, you can get some real life dimensions. So I'm gonna estimate this. This is about 12 millimeters. I'm working in metric right now, and we want to do the rest of this. We need a little bit of a lip for the phone. And so when you click on this, if you drag it out this way, notice it dimensions the length of the line. But if you drag it out this way, it dimensions the overall height of the line in the Y up and down direction. I want to measure the actual length. That's kind of the engagement of where it's going to touch off on the phone. And so I'm going to click that. We don't need that much room. So I'm going to say that is about 10 millimeters or a centimeter. And let's start doing this. So we want to dimension this. This I actually care about the height, and so I'm gonna dimension this here. So I'm dragging it, I click, and this is about 1.5 inches, maybe about 40 millimeters, we'll say. And we will dimension that. And then the other thing we can do is we want to dimension the approximate angle here, and we can totally do that. So smart dimension again. To dimension an angle, you press one side and then the other line that you want the angle to reference off of. So I just clicked on both lines. You can move this around. I don't want this angle. I want actually this inner angle here. Actually, I want this angle here. So a nice rule of thumb for viewing screens and how you want them viewed to you, we can say about like 65 degrees is a pretty solid number there. Awesome. Cool. And just for example, I want to show what the phone is going to look like in this. So what I'm going to do is create a construction geometry. So again, remember, this is just reference geometry to show what that phone will look like. So I'm clicking here and clicking this rectangular drop down. And in the drop down menu, there's a bunch of different rectangle options. These rectangles here are straight up left and right. So like horizontal and up and down lines. Because my phone is at an angle, I want to use a rectangle that's an angle. So one of these two here. So I'm going to use the 3-point corner rectangle tool. And so for this to work, you press the 3 points of the rectangle. And so I know my phone is going to be like here, here, and the phone is going to touch off on this line. So I'm actually going to do that, hit that line, and we extrude or pull, excuse me, the sketch all the way up here. Alrighty, and we want this construction geometry again because this is just a reference, and so I'm gonna go in and turn that all into construction geometry. And another way to do that is you can take lines and you can click on it and go to the line properties and say for construction there, or you can right click on the line and say for construction geometry on the menu here. Let's see, right here, construction geometry. Another thing you can do is you can highlight multiple lines by holding your shift key to be able to do multiple things at the same time. And so what is my phone here? So my phone with the case, as I want to use it with the case, is about maybe 12 millimeters here. You can see here that, ooh, this looks a little too small. The phone is going to be sticking out. And my phone height-wise, I'm going to use this diagonal here. And I have a ruler. Oh gosh, this ruler is in inches. Let's say, and we can do inches and it will convert it. So we can say 6 inches. and that will convert us over, so 152.4 millimeters. All right, so we have a phone here, and we have this phone point touching off on this line, but we want the phone to actually rest on our phone holder. And so what we're gonna do is we want to add relations to make sure that our example phone reference sketch is touching off on that. So we're going to go to add relation, and what do we want? We want this surface of the phone to touch off on this surface of the part, and so this line and this line would be the same line. And to do that, we highlight the phone line, and let's highlight the line of the phone holder, and we can use this relation collinear, which means those lines are lined up. I clicked that, notice how that phone moved there, and now we have a semi-resting phone. The phone, you can see I can move it up and down, and so the last thing I want to do is make sure that the phone corner is resting on the bottom of this. And so you can drag it down here and notice how features sort of just appear and line up. I think that's fine. And so I just match this corner to that corner of the phone. Alright, so we already noticed a first error in the design, and this is exactly why I use this construction geometry to kind of give me a reference profile of the phone. We can see here that this internal width of this lip is too small for my phone. So we can click this, and you can click the up here. You can even use your mouse wheel to scroll. So I'm scrolling with my mouse wheel to increase that. So I think this number looks good, 14.3. I want to get a little bit more engagement on my phone, so I'm probably gonna bump this up to like 13. Cool. And yeah, we're looking at this here. The other big thing we want to look at is the weight of the phone. And so we don't want this to be so small that the phone is going to tip over. And a good way to figure that out is by looking at your phone's, what we call the center of gravity, or where is the center of your phone. So a center of gravity is exactly like where the center of the weight is. If you could balance a part on its center of gravity, it would be totally balanced there. So for our side drawing, because we use this rectangular tool, I'm going to draw a construction line here. Actually, our center of weight is this line going down towards with gravity. And so we want to make sure that center of gravity is going through our phone holder part here. Some other things I'm going to do is I am going to change my sketch line colors to make this a little bit more clear. So I'm going to turn all of my phone lines into being red. So if you highlight the lines here and you click this paintbrush on here, you can change the color of the line. So I'm going to hold down Shift and change those line colors. And this is also part of the phone. Awesome. So notice that this back here is still blue. And so what we're just talking about, the center of gravity, we want to make sure that the phone isn't going to tip this whole thing over. So a great way to do this is to make sure that this midpoint here, extends far enough past our center of gravity. So if I just shift this over like this, this should mean the phone will be balanced. So a cool trick I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the phone's center of gravity line to this midpoint here. And let's just make that, 2 millimeters, a little bit past. Alright, now the last thing looking at our solid lines here is that this is still moving up and down. I want this to be leveled and lined up with the front part here. And so how do we make it lined and level? We can use a horizontal relation. So let's add that. Add relation. We're going to click, we want this point to be lined up with this line. And another way to do that is we can use this relation here, which is coincident, which means the point lines up with the line. So it's like collinear, except it's with a line and a point. And we added that relationship there. And cool. And so now if you look down here on the bottom right of my screen, it says it's fully defined. We're not totally done yet, but I'm gonna warn you right now, SolidWorks does sometimes crash, so I'm going to exit the sketch and I am going to save. Cool. So we are almost there now. We have to create a enclosed profile with that thickness to be able to extrude it. So let's do that. So what I just did to go back into the sketch is I went into the feature tree, the history. I right-clicked sketch, and then you can click here to go back to edit the sketch. So now I'm back on the edit sketch mode. And let's say you got your screen twisted and you want to look at the sketch right on. You can go and click to normal view here. And so up here is your display panel, and I want to make this one here, which is normal too. So now we've returned back to that straight on sketch view here. Alright, so how do we thicken and make that profile? There's this really simple tool, one click, called Offset Entities, and it's going to thicken our outline here. And so how thick do we want to make this? For 3D printing, 3 millimeters is a pretty solid thickness. So I just changed this to 3, and this is the offset distance. And it's going to ask me to select the chain. So I'm going to select this chain of lines, and it auto selected the entire chain. That looks correct. And the last thing, again, we want to make sure that this is an enclosed profile. We're not extruding 2 lines in space. We're extruding like a closed profile throughout space. So there's this feature here called cap ends, and we can cap the ends here with either lines or arcs. So I will just stick with arcs here. I think will look nice. And there you go. Now this is fully enclosed. Another way you can tell it's fully enclosed is this shaded sketch contour. If this is selected and your thing is fully closed, everything will be black here. Let's say I deleted this line. Notice that it's no longer shaded because the sketch contour is not fully closed. But let me undo that. Alright, and we are shaded. So we can exit the sketch. So you can click exit sketch here, exit sketch here. Do not click the red button. That means get rid of and discard all changes. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to click exit sketch. And now we have the finished profile. You can go in here and also rename your items here. And so I will call this profile sketch. And now let's do the final step, which will be to extrude it. So to extrude it, we go over to the Features tab, extrude the boss and base, and it's going to ask you, select a plane on which to sketch the feature cross-section, or number 2, an existing sketch to use for the feature. We just drew the sketch, it exists, and so how do we click it? So it's hidden here, but if you click on this arrow here, that's going to show you that feature tree list again. And so we can go down, click Profile Sketch, and now it's going to open the Boss Extrude menu. And so we're going to say where does the extrusion start and where does the extrusion stop to create our solid shape. So from where it starts, we can say the sketch plane, which was that right plane we picked from the beginning, and how much do we want to extrude this by. So this is extruded by maybe 50 millimeters or so, and so there's a bunch of different features here, and we'll just say blind, which means we pick a number to extrude it to. I'm gonna go in here. This is the depth to extrude it to. I'm gonna click 4 millimeters, and you can see here in the preview what that looks like. I think that looks great, so you can click the green check mark to okay it. And bam! This is our final phone holder example part. I'm gonna save. You know that I need to save because when there's a little asterisk right up here by the file name, that means it hasn't been saved yet. So once I click save, that will disappear. And awesome! Here is our part. I hope this tutorial